And there's the officer's booth, straight ahead. Moving to the right will be 3 Cellhouse. And up the stairs, we have 5 tiers. Across the tiers, over to 4 House. Again, we have 5 tiers. Each one of the lighted areas that I'm moving down now on each one of the tiers is the shower rooms. This is where the inmates take their showers. Moving back to my left, again, is all of 4 House. What we have here is the Cellhouse lockbox. This is an example of what we have on each one of the tiers. Okay, this is the lockbox that controls all of the cells opening and closing. I will move to my left now, and another officer will go ahead and demonstrate the operation of the lockbox itself. Okay, he just opened some of the cells down 4 House. Now he'll go ahead and close it and then open up the first 2 cells. Okay. He can select each cell that he desires to open by using the lever inside the lockbox and selecting it and then pulling the clutch on the inside, engaging, and then using the other handle on the far right to actually open or close the cell. This particular lockbox has 15 cells that he can selectively choose to open. This is an individual inmate. He has 1 bunk, he has a shelf, a small locker, and a sink. And it's approximately 6 foot by 12 foot. Up here is a typical 8-man cell. I'll walk through the doors and give you a little idea what's on the inside here. This cell has a TV in it, and the 8 men selectively choose the channel that they want to watch themselves. Normally at 6 o'clock in the evening and 9 o'clock in the evening, there's a movie shown by the institution, and they can watch that movie. They have a community sink here for all 8 of them. And they have a partition that is, what it does, it covers the toilet. Moving around the partition here. And this is their bathroom, community bathroom. And again, this is set up for 8 men. And they have a sink. At this time, we're up on the I and J tier, which is the highest you can go in the cell house. I'm going to attempt to stand up here and get a picture of downstairs at the booth area, the officer's booth, and what we call the flats. Okay, moving up the wall and straight across from I and J tier, we have what they call the shotgun walk. This was used back when the feds had the institution. And they would post security officers along the walk there with shotguns. This goes all the way around the 3-house portion of 3-4 house. What we have here is the shower room that the inmates use on a daily basis to take their showers for personal hygiene. There's a curtain running up the center here for their own modesty there. The curtain was put up, I believe, after the states took over the state took over the institution. Prior to that, there was no curtain. We had no females that worked in the federal institution until about 1979. Here is what we call the pipe chase, and the pipe chase is nothing more than a channel that runs between the cell house so that pipes and what have you can be checked out and repaired. And it's also used as an escape avenue for an officer on the tier. What he can do is go down the pipe chase here, lock the door behind him, and he can escape by going down the ladder to my right there. And it goes all the way down to the bottom of the cell house. As a matter of fact, it goes below the cell house, and he can just use that as an escape route if necessary. Both sides, 3 and 4 house, have the chase here, but not necessarily the pipe chase where it goes all the way below the floor. And this is the only side that 3 house that you can do that with. At this time, I'm moving down the 3I tier, and what we're going to do is go around the corner here, and you can see how narrow the walkway here is. Back when the feds had it, it didn't have the cyclone fencing that it has now. That didn't come until later on. And the reason it was put up was to keep anyone from being thrown off the tier. It's a long ways down. Okay, we're going to walk down the tier now, and what we're going to do is go down to where Charlie Manson was assigned. I believe that was down here at 3I5, or correction, 3I4. And at that time, he had put a pentagram on the floor. And there's still traces of the pentagram here. And by the way, this is an 8-man cell. And there it is, right there. He had this painted on the floor, him and his buddies here, way back in the 60s, I believe. Again, this is a typical 8-man cell. And I'll step out and we'll take one more look at the pentagram. And there it is. Okay. Now, these are the telephones down on the flats that the inmates used on a daily basis. And believe me, they kept you busy. There's a total of 21 telephones that was available for use for the inmates. To my right, with the door open, was the staff latrine. This is the latrine that the officers inside the cell house were able to use. Yeah. Again, we're on the flats, and at this time, we're moving down to the auditorium. Now, in the auditorium, we're just as you step into the auditorium, to your left is another door, and this is the old D-seg. Now, this unit has been condemned. I guess you'd call it the hole. It was condemned several years ago. It's no longer in use. This is to the rear of 4 house, just prior to going into the auditorium. And if you'll notice, there is a scaffolding here that goes all the way up. Now, this scaffolding, when it was used to clean the windows. In the cell house. On my right is the auditorium door. Give you a good shot there. And at this time, we'll be moving into the auditorium. Is the door going into the old D-seg unit. You'll notice there's a sign here. It's out of bounds, unauthorized. Inmates. Okay, moving into the old D-seg unit itself. It's a lot like a dungeon in here. Move down the hall. Now in this unit, there's also a stairway that goes upstairs to other tiers. And this is what used to be called the hole. See if I can get a look inside one of the cells. You can get an idea what it looks like. You can open upstairs. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and move upstairs. And okay, what we're looking at here is one of the actual cells that the inmates stayed in. And if you'll notice, there's absolutely nothing in here, with exception of a sink and the toilet bowl. And it has a bed. I see it has an old 2-cellhouse mattress on it. It does have some ventilation. And as a matter of fact, I believe that what we're looking at here is system. Again, is the old shower that was used in the segregated unit. And again, there's virtually nothing here except for just a shower head. And you'll notice above it, it has a radiator. Okay, what we're looking at here is the top tier. And if you'll notice, there is 3 cells to each tier. And here to my right, what you're seeing is a ladder that goes up to the roof. What I'm doing now is leaving the old desegregation unit. By the way, it does have 3 tiers, and approximately 3 cells on each tier. We're moving now into the old auditorium, and it's up the steps here. On my way here. And through the doors. Now this is the auditorium. And believe me, it is huge. It didn't look too huge though when you get about 500 inmates in here. At one time, all the way up to the stage was nothing but seats. You could seat approximately 500-600 inmates in here. Now on the stage itself, the curtain, when it was dropped and a movie was being shown, officers could walk behind the curtain because it had pinholes in it, and they could observe the inmates to the front and possibly identify inmates that are exchanging contraband. Auditorium is murals that are on the walls running from the rear of the auditorium to the front. What I'm doing now is standing on the actual stage and looking towards the rear of the auditorium, or the entrance of the auditorium. Again, the lighting isn't good. However, there are murals on both walls on each side. This is the actual stage area that I'm standing on, and you'll notice as I go up, it goes up approximately 5 stories to the ceiling. Originally, this building was heated using the old radiators that we see here. Okay, what we're doing now is moving out of the auditorium area and back out into the cell block area. When we move down by the officer's booth, I'm going to make an attempt to get a little bit better of a shot of the 3-4 house together. But again, we're so close to it with this camera that we may not get the actual full effect of what it really looks like. Make an attempt. Now here at the officer's station, what they did was basically do all the administration for the cell house as far as making any moves, any planning, things like that went on in the cell house that dealt with the officers. They took care of it. Issuing out matches, soap, toothbrushes, toothpaste, things like that. Here you can get a, oops, okay, here we get a better shot of both sides of the cell house. And this is the 4 side. And back over to my left is the 3 side. And then if we go up, what you can see here is catwalks. Now these catwalks were used by the officers to go from one house to the other house. And what they would do would be racking doors during the period movements, your lunches, dinners, and breakfast throughout the day. The door that you're looking at now goes out into the corridor. Now, if there was a main, or if there was an entrance, or the main entrance there was used for the inmates leaving the cell house, going to main line or going to eat their meals. Down the corridor and to the right would be the dining hall. Also, and this is the door that would be secured immediately if anything was to happen inside the cell house, i.e. a fight or something like that. Some kind of a disturbance that would require it to be locked down. Now moving towards the corridor door, to the left, we have a sink that was used by all the inmates for getting water, what have you. And we had an ice machine in here that was positioned between this machine, which is the hot water machine, and the sink. Now the ice machine was constantly filled with ice. Inmates would be able to get their ice there and go ahead and put water in their ice, or beverages of soda pop, things like that that they kept in their cells. And the hot water there they would use for bowls up in their cells for ramen and what have you. Hot water, possibly for coffee. And again, if I look straight up, you can see the old shotgun walk. And coming back down, we have the bulletin boards that were used to give information to the inmates while they were moving about during their period movements. Here would be the booth officer's keys. Now these keys control everything that is down here on the flats, to include all the lock boxes doors, and what have you, to get into the different units for supplies for the inmates and for the officers. Now what we're looking at here is the actual entrance to the 3-4 cell house from the corridor.